The ornate council chamber of the Galactic Alliance was abuzz with heated discussion. The representatives of the most powerful civilizations in the known universe had gathered to address a matter of grave importance: the sudden emergence of a new species on the galactic stage. Takrin, the eldest and most revered member of the Alliance Council, rose from his seat and gestured for silence. "Fellow councilors, we face a grave threat to the stability and order that our alliance has maintained for millennia. A primitive species known as humans has been discovered, dwelling on an insignificant planet in the outer reaches of the galaxy." A murmur of concern rippled through the chamber. The humans were a recent discovery, a species that had only just begun to venture beyond their homeworld and make their first faltering steps into the cosmos. Their technology was crude, their exploration limited, and their military capabilities were considered negligible at best. Takrin continued, his voice grave. "These humans possess an unnatural resilience and an aggressive nature that is most troubling. Already, they have made contact with several of our outer colonies and have responded with hostility to our attempts at diplomacy. They seem intent on expanding their sphere of influence and may pose a threat to the delicate balance we have worked so hard to maintain." An younger counselor, Zelia, rose to her feet. "Then we must act decisively to neutralize this threat before it grows any larger. The humans are primitive, their technology inferior to our own. Surely a small contingent of our forces can subdue them and bring them into the fold of the Alliance without difficulty." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The counselors nodded, convinced that the humans posed little real danger. They had faced down far mightier civilizations in the past, crushing any who dared to challenge the supremacy of the Galactic Alliance. Takrin raised a clawed hand for silence. "I sense a disturbing undercurrent to this threat. The humans, for all their primitiveness, possess a certain resilience. They have already shown a remarkable ability to adapt and innovate, even in the face of our superior technology. We must not underestimate them." Zelia scoffed, her eyes narrowing. "Resilience, innovation. These are lowly creatures, barely out of their caves. What threat could they possibly pose to the might of the Galactic Alliance?" The old counselor fixed her with a stern gaze. "I sense a darkness in their spirit, a drive and determination that we have not encountered before. They may surprise us if we are not vigilant." Another counselor, a hulking figure named Grakter, rumbled in agreement. "Takrin speaks wisdom. These humans have already proven themselves to be unpredictable. We should not take them lightly." Takrin nodded gravely. "Then it is settled. We must take action to neutralize this threat before it grows any larger. I will dispatch our finest fleet to subjugate the humans and bring them into compliance with the Alliance. They will learn to submit to our rule, or they will be destroyed." The chamber erupted into applause, the counselors convinced that the humans posed little real danger. They had faced down far mightier civilizations in the past, crushing any who dared to challenge the supremacy of the Galactic Alliance. This upstart species would be no different. Little did they know, the humans were about to shatter their arrogant beliefs in ways they could scarcely imagine. The massive fleet of the Galactic Alliance dropped out of hyperspace, their sleek, angular warships blotting out the stars as they approached the unassuming blue-green planet known as Earth. Aboard the flagship, the commander, a seasoned veteran named Torlik, gazed out at the alien world with a mixture of contempt and anticipation. "So this is the homeworld of the humans," he growled, his mandibles clicking softly. "Such a primitive, insignificant place. Our victory here will be swift and decisive." The plan was simple. A display of overwhelming force would quickly crush any resistance the humans could muster, forcing them to submit to the rule of the Alliance. Torlik had no doubt that his fleet, with its advanced technology and battle-hardened crews, would make short work of these primitive upstarts. "Begin the invasion," he ordered, his voice cold and commanding. "Deploy the ground forces and secure the major population centers. I want this world pacified within the day." The Alliance ships surged forward, their ion cannons and plasma torpedoes unleashing a devastating barrage upon the human cities and military installations below. Torluk watched with satisfaction as plumes of smoke and debris rose from the targeted areas, his confidence unwavering. But as the minutes ticked by, the commander's satisfaction began to turn to confusion. The human defenses, rather than crumbling as expected, were putting up a fierce and determined resistance. Missile batteries and energy weapons pounded the invading ships, inflicting significant damage. What is the meaning of this? Torluk roared, his claws gripping the arms of his command chair. How can these primitives stand against the might of the Galactic Alliance? The communications officer, her face etched with concern, reported the growing losses. Sir, we are sustaining heavy casualties. The human defenses are proving far more resilient than anticipated. They are utilizing unconventional tactics and advanced weaponry that we did not account for. Torluk's eyes narrowed, a growing sense of unease taking hold. Impossible. Their technology is inferior, their military capabilities negligible. They should not be able to withstand our assault. Yet the evidence was clear. The human forces, though vastly outnumbered and outmatched in terms of pure firepower, were holding their own against the invading fleet. Their ships, while smaller and less advanced, were nimble and well-coordinated, while their ground-based defenses continued to inflict heavy losses on the Alliance troops. As the battle raged on, Torluk's confidence slowly turned to alarm. This was no mere skirmish. This was a full-blown conflict, one that the Galactic Alliance was struggling to win. The humans, these supposedly primitive and inferior creatures, were proving to be formidable adversaries, their resourcefulness and adaptability confounding the seasoned commander. Pull back the ground forces, Torluk ordered, his voice tinged with a rare hint of desperation. Concentrate our firepower from orbit. We cannot afford to lose any more troops to these humans. The Alliance fleet shifted its focus, unleashing a devastating barrage of energy weapons and missiles upon the human cities and military installations. But even as the ground forces retreated, the human defenses continued to hold, their ships darting in and out of the Alliance's fire, inflicting steadily mounting losses. Torluk watched helplessly as his grand plans for a quick and decisive victory crumbled before his eyes. The humans, these supposedly weak and inferior creatures, were proving to be a far greater threat than the Galactic Alliance had ever anticipated. As the battle raged on, Torluk knew that his arrogant assumptions had been shattered. The humans were no mere primitives. They were a force to be reckoned with, a species that refused to be cowed by the might of the Galactic Alliance. And in that moment, the commander realized that this conflict was far from over. The humans had surprised them once, and they might just do so again. The news of the Galactic Alliance's stunning defeat at the hands of the humans spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Counselors and military commanders alike were left in a state of shock, their arrogant assumptions about the primitive nature of the human species shattered. In the halls of the Alliance Council, the atmosphere was one of growing unease and concern. Takrin, the elder statesman whose warnings had gone unheeded, now found himself at the center of a heated debate. How could this have happened? Zelia, the same counselor who had dismissed the human threat, demanded angrily. Our forces are the most advanced in the known universe. We should have crushed these primitives with ease. Takrin's response was measured, but there was a hint of grim satisfaction in his voice. I warned you all not to underestimate the humans. They have proven themselves to be far more resilient and adaptable than we ever imagined. Graktur, the hulking counselor, rumbled in agreement. The reports from the fleet are most disturbing. The humans utilized tactics and technologies that caught our forces off guard. They seem to possess an uncanny ability to learn and adapt on the fly. Zelia scoffed, her eyes narrowing. Then we must deploy our full might against them. Surely the combined forces of the Galactic Alliance can crush this upstart species once and for all. Takrin raised a clawed hand, silencing the younger counselor. That, my friend, is precisely the problem. The humans have already begun to industrialize and mobilize their own war machine at a staggering pace. By the time we muster our full strength, they may have developed countermeasures and strategies to neutralize our technological advantage. The chamber fell silent, the weight of Takran's words sinking in. The humans, a species they had so recently dismissed as primitive and insignificant, were now posing a genuine threat to the stability of the Galactic Alliance. Zelia's face twisted in a grimace. "Then what do you propose we do, Takran? Sit back and wait for these humans to attack us again?" The elder counselor shook his head. "No, we must act swiftly and decisively. But we must also be prepared for the possibility that the humans may prove to be a more formidable adversary than we ever imagined." With that, Takran turned to the assembled counselors, his eyes burning with a sense of purpose. "I propose we mobilize the full might of the Galactic Alliance. We must overwhelm the humans with our superior numbers and technology before they have a chance to adapt and counter our efforts." The chamber erupted in a chorus of agreement, the counselors finally acknowledging the true gravity of the situation. In the days and weeks that followed, the Alliance launched a massive military mobilization, drawing upon the resources and manpower of its member civilizations to assemble a force unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Meanwhile, on the distant planet of Earth, the human leaders watched the gathering storm with a mix of trepidation and determination. They had tasted victory against the arrogant aliens, and they had no intention of surrendering their newfound freedom without a fight. As the human war machine began to churn into motion, the people of Earth steeled themselves for the challenges that lay ahead. They knew that the coming conflict would test the limits of their resilience and innovation, but they were prepared to meet the challenge head-on. For the humans, there was no turning back. They had been thrust into a galactic conflict, and they were determined to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. The massive armada of the Galactic Alliance dropped out of hyperspace, its vast fleet of sleek, angular warships blotting out the stars as they approached the defiant world of Earth. The air crackled with a palpable sense of tension, as both the invaders and the defenders prepared for a confrontation that would shape the fate of the galaxy. Aboard the flagship, the Alliance commander, a grizzled veteran named Graktor, surveyed the scene with a mixture of confidence and trepidation. The debacle of the first invasion had shaken the very foundations of the Galactic Alliance, and he was determined not to repeat the same mistakes. "This time, we will not underestimate the humans," Graktor growled, his deep voice rumbling like distant thunder. "We have studied their tactics, analyzed their technology, and we are ready to crush their pathetic resistance once and for all." The order was given, and the Alliance armada surged forward, unleashing a devastating barrage of energy weapons and missiles upon the human defenses. Plumes of smoke and debris rose from the planet's surface, and for a moment, it seemed as if the humans would be overwhelmed by the sheer might of the invading force. But as the battle raged on, a remarkable transformation began to take place. The human forces, once thought to be primitive and outmatched, began to adapt and evolve with stunning speed, utilizing new tactics and technologies that confounded the Alliance commanders. Graktor watched in mounting frustration as the human ships, once easy targets, began to evade the Alliance's firepower with uncanny agility. Their missiles and energy weapons, once seemingly ineffective, now found their marks with alarming precision, inflicting heavy losses on the invading fleet. "How is this possible?" the commander roared, his claws gripping the arms of his command chair. "We have studied their capabilities, we have accounted for their weaknesses, yet they continue to defy us at every turn." The communications officer, her face etched with a mixture of awe and concern, reported the mounting casualties. "Sir, the humans are utilizing tactics and technologies that we have not encountered before. They seem to be learning and adapting at an astonishing rate, and our forces are struggling to keep up." Graktor's eyes narrowed, his mandibles clicking in a display of barely contained fury. "Impossible. The humans are a primitive species, their technology inferior to our own. They should not be able to mount such an effective defense." And yet, the evidence was undeniable. The human forces, once thought to be on the brink of defeat, were now pushing the invading Alliance armada back, inflicting devastating losses and denying the invaders any significant ground. As the battle raged on, Graktor realized with growing unease that the Galactic Alliance was facing a foe unlike any it had encountered before. The humans, these supposed primitives, were proving to be remarkably adaptable and innovative, their determination and resourcefulness proving to be the key factors in their unexpected resurgence. The commander's confidence, once so unwavering, began to crumble. The Alliance had entered this conflict with the arrogant assumption that it would be a swift and decisive victory, but now they found themselves struggling to maintain their grip on the battle. In that moment, Graktor knew that the fate of the Galactic Alliance hung in the balance. The humans, once dismissed as weak and insignificant, had shattered the Alliance's complacency and forced them to confront a harsh reality, that they were facing a formidable adversary, one that refused to be cowed by the might of the galaxy's most powerful civilization. As the battle raged on, the tide began to turn, and the Galactic Alliance found itself on the defensive, its vaunted military might steadily eroding in the face of the human onslaught. The war raged on, with the Galactic Alliance struggling to maintain its grip on the conflict. The humans, once thought to be no more than a minor annoyance, had proven themselves to be a formidable adversary, their resilience and adaptability confounding the Alliance's most seasoned commanders. Graktor, the grizzled veteran who had led the initial invasion, paced the bridge of his flagship, his eyes narrowed in a mix of frustration and desperation. The losses sustained by the Alliance forces had been staggering, and the relentless human onslaught showed no signs of abating. "We cannot continue to sustain these losses," the commander growled, his claws clenching into fists. "The humans have proven to be more resilient and resourceful than we ever imagined. We must find a way to break their will to fight, or else the Galactic Alliance itself may fall." The other officers in the command center exchanged uneasy glances, their faces etched with concern. They had all witnessed the shocking turn of events, the way the humans had seemingly adapted and evolved to counter the Alliance's superior technology and tactics. One of the younger officers, a female named Caloran, spoke up tentatively. "Perhaps we could consider utilizing some of our more unconventional weaponry, Commander. The banned technologies we have kept in reserve could tip the scales in our favor." Graktor's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, a hint of a cruel smile played across his features. "You make a valid point, Caloran. The humans have forced our hand, and we must be willing to employ any means necessary to ensure our victory." The decision was made, and the order was given. The Alliance began to deploy its most devastating and destructive weapons, technologies that had been banned for centuries due to their horrific effects. Powerful energy beams that could incinerate entire cities, bioweapons capable of wiping out entire populations, all were unleashed against the defiant humans. The human defenders were horrified by the sheer brutality of the Alliance's new tactics, their faces twisted in a mix of fear and righteous fury. They had fought with honor, using their ingenuity and determination to overcome the invaders' technological superiority. But now they faced an enemy that had abandoned all pretense of restraint. As the Alliance's devastating attacks rained down upon their homeworld, the people of Earth rallied together, their resolve hardening in the face of such overwhelming adversity. They had come too far to surrender now, and they would fight to the last, even if it meant the complete destruction of their planet. The war had taken a dark turn, with both sides engaging in a brutal and unforgiving struggle for survival. The Galactic Alliance, driven by a desperation born of their own arrogance and complacency, had resorted to tactics that violated the very principles upon which their civilization was built. And the humans, their backs against the wall, found themselves forced to match the Alliance's brutality measure for measure, their own weapons and strategies evolving to meet the mounting threat. The galaxy held its breath, watching in a mix of horror and awe as the two combatants engaged in a relentless dance of death, each side driven by an unyielding determination to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. The fate of the human race, and perhaps the fate of the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The once arrogant alliance had been forced to confront the true power of the species they had so casually dismissed, and now they faced the sobering realization that their victory was far from assured. As the battle raged on, the lines between right and wrong began to blur, and the very foundations of the Galactic Alliance were shaken to their core. For in their desperation to crush the human resistance, they had abandoned the ideals that had once defined them, and in doing so, they risked losing the very thing they sought to protect: the order and stability of the galaxy they had sworn to uphold. The war had taken a devastating toll on both sides, but the Galactic Alliance, with its vast resources and military might, had slowly begun to wear down the human defenses. The relentless bombardment from space, combined with the horrific bioweapons and other banned technologies they had employed, had taken a heavy toll on the people of Earth. Graktur, the Alliance commander, watched the destruction unfold with a mixture of grim satisfaction and growing unease. The humans had indeed proven to be a formidable adversary, their tenacity and resourcefulness confounding his expectations at every turn. But now, with their cities in ruins and their forces in retreat, the once proud defenders of Earth were on the brink of collapse. "We are close to breaking their will to fight," the commander rumbled, his voice tinged with a rare hint of triumph. "The humans have fought well, but they cannot withstand the full force of the Galactic Alliance forever." The communications officer, her face etched with a mixture of relief and concern, relayed the latest reports from the front lines. "Sir, our forces are advancing steadily. The human resistance is crumbling, and our troops are securing more territory with each passing day." Graktur nodded, his eyes scanning the holographic display that showed the ever-shrinking human-controlled zones. "Excellent. Soon, we will have this world under our control, and the humans will be forced to submit to the will of the Galactic Alliance." But even as the commander savored the prospect of victory, a dark shadow of doubt began to creep into his mind. The humans had surprised them time and time again, their ability to adapt and innovate proving to be a constant thorn in the Alliance's side. What if, even in their darkest hour, they managed to find a way to turn the tide of the battle once more? The doubt only grew as reports of increasingly desperate and determined resistance from the human forces continued to filter in. They were fighting with a ferocity born of desperation, their backs against the wall, and Graktur couldn't help but wonder if they might just have one last surprise up their sleeve. As the Alliance forces pushed deeper into human territory, the commander's confidence began to waver. The destruction they had wrought was staggering, and the human casualties were mounting by the day. Yet the humans refused to surrender, their spirit and determination seemingly unbreakable. Graktur's claws clenched into fists as he watched the holographic display, his mind racing. The Galactic Alliance had deployed its most devastating weapons, its most ruthless tactics, and still the humans refused to yield. How could this be? How could a primitive, technologically inferior species stand against the might of the greatest civilization in the known galaxy? The answer, he realized, lay in the very nature of the humans themselves. They were not just resilient and adaptable. They were driven by a spirit that transcended the mere physical realm. Their will to fight, their determination to defend their homeworld, was a force that the Alliance had never encountered before. As the battle reached its darkest hour, with the humans on the verge of total defeat, Graktur felt a growing sense of unease. For the first time, he began to wonder if the Galactic Alliance had truly underestimated the true strength of their adversaries, a strength that lay not in their technology or their military might, but in the very essence of their being. The commander's confidence, once so unwavering, began to crumble. The humans had proven themselves to be far more than mere primitives, and Graktur knew that the Galactic Alliance's victory, if it came at all, would be a Pyrrhic one. For in their relentless pursuit of conquest, the Alliance had sacrificed its own ideals, its own principles. And now, as they stood on the precipice of what should have been an easy victory, they faced the sobering realization that they may have met their match in the most unlikely of foes. As the battle raged on, the human forces found themselves pushed to the brink of collapse. The Galactic Alliance's devastating attacks had taken a tremendous toll, and the once defiant defenders of Earth were now struggling to hold their ground against the relentless onslaught. Graktur, the Alliance commander, watched the unfolding events with a mix of grim satisfaction and growing unease. The humans had proven to be a far more formidable foe than anyone had anticipated. But now, with their cities in ruins and their military forces in disarray, it seemed that their resistance was finally crumbling. Yet, even as the commander savored the prospect of victory, a glimmer of hope began to emerge from the ashes of the human defeat. Across the shattered landscapes of Earth, a new resolve began to take hold as the people rallied together in the face of their darkest hour. In the makeshift command centers scattered throughout the planet, the human leaders huddled together, their eyes burning with a determination that belied the dire situation they found themselves in. They had fought hard, they had sacrificed much, and they had no intention of surrendering their hard-won freedom to the invading forces of the Galactic Alliance. "We cannot give up now," one of the generals, a grizzled veteran named Damien, declared. "The Alliance may have the advantage in numbers and technology, but we have something far more powerful: the will to fight for our home and our way of life." The others nodded in agreement, their faces etched with a mixture of grim determination and a spark of hope. They had studied the tactics and technologies of their alien foes, and they had devised new strategies to counter the Alliance's overwhelming firepower. "We've learned from our mistakes," another officer, a young woman named Anya, chimed in. "We know how the Alliance operates, and we know how to exploit their weaknesses. If we can just hold out a little longer, we can turn the tide of this battle." And so, in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, the human forces launched a series of bold counterattacks, striking at the Alliance's supply lines and communication hubs with ruthless precision. The invaders, caught off guard by the ferocity and ingenuity of the human assault, found themselves struggling to maintain their grip on the war-torn planet. Graktur watched the unfolding events with growing alarm, his claws clenching into fists as he realized that the tide of the battle was turning once again. The humans, their backs against the wall, had found a wellspring of strength and determination that the Alliance had never anticipated. "How is this possible?" the commander roared, his voice laced with a mixture of frustration and disbelief. "We have thrown everything we have at them, and yet they refuse to surrender." The communications officer, her face etched with a mix of awe and trepidation, reported the mounting losses. "Sir, the human forces are inflicting devastating casualties on our troops. They are utilizing unconventional tactics and technologies that we have never encountered before." Graktur's eyes narrowed, his mandibles clicking in a display of barely contained fury. "Impossible. They are mere primitives, their technology inferior to our own. They should not be able to withstand the might of the Galactic Alliance." But as the battle raged on, the evidence became undeniable. The humans, once thought to be on the brink of defeat, had found a way to turn the tide of the war. Their resilience, their adaptability, and their sheer determination had proven to be the key factors in their unexpected resurgence. Graktur watched helplessly as the human forces pushed the Alliance troops back, regaining ground and inflicting heavy casualties. The commander's once unwavering confidence had been shattered, replaced by a growing sense of unease and uncertainty. The humans had proven themselves to be far more than the Alliance had ever imagined. They were not just a primitive species to be conquered and subjugated. They were a force to be reckoned with, a civilization that refused to be cowed by the might of the galaxy's most powerful alliance. And as the battle reached its climax, Graktur knew that the Galactic Alliance was facing a reckoning unlike any it had ever known. The humans had shattered their arrogant beliefs, and in doing so, they had changed the very course of the war, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy itself. The battle had raged on for months, a brutal and unforgiving conflict that had tested the limits of both the human defenders and the mighty Galactic Alliance. The once confident invaders, their arrogance shattered by the resilience and adaptability of their foes, now found themselves struggling to maintain their grip on the war-torn planet. Graktur, the Alliance commander, watched the tide of the battle turn against him. His eyes narrowed in a mix of frustration and disbelief. The humans, once thought to be mere primitives, had proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with, their determination and resourcefulness confounding the Alliance's every attempt to subdue them. "How is this possible?" the commander growled, his claws clenching into fists. "We have thrown the full might of the Galactic Alliance against them, and yet they continue to defy us at every turn." The communications officer, her face etched with a mix of awe and trepidation, delivered the latest reports from the front lines. "Sir, the human forces have pushed us back to the edge of our own territory. They are inflicting heavy casualties, and our grip on the planet is slipping." Graktur's mandibles clicked in a display of barely contained fury. "Unacceptable. We cannot allow these primitives to humiliate the Galactic Alliance in this manner. Redouble our efforts. We must crush their resistance once and for all." But as the Alliance launched its final desperate assault, the human defenders proved to be more than a match for their alien invaders. Their tactics, honed through months of grueling combat, were now the equal of the Alliance's own, and their sheer determination to protect their homeworld proved to be the deciding factor. In the end, the Galactic Alliance was forced to sue for peace, its once vaunted military might battered and broken by the human onslaught. Graktur, his pride shattered, stood before the Alliance Council, his head bowed in a rare display of humility. "The humans have proven themselves to be a formidable adversary," the commander admitted, his voice tinged with a grudging respect. "Their resilience, their adaptability, and their sheer determination have shattered our assumptions about their capabilities." Takrin, the elder statesman whose warnings had gone unheeded, nodded solemnly. "Indeed, Graktur, the humans have shown us that they are not mere primitives to be conquered and subjugated. They are a civilization in their own right, one that deserves our respect and our acknowledgement." Zelia, the counselor who had so arrogantly dismissed the human threat, sat in sullen silence, her eyes downcast. The reality of their defeat was a bitter pill to swallow, and she knew that the Galactic Alliance would never be the same. As the negotiations dragged on, the humans emerged from the conflict as a new power in the galaxy, their status forever changed. No longer would they be seen as mere upstarts to be brushed aside. They were a force to be reckoned with, a civilization that had proven its worth on the battlefield and demanded recognition from the other galactic powers. Graktur, his once unwavering confidence shaken, could only watch as the terms of the peace treaty were hammered out. The humans, in a display of remarkable magnanimity, did not seek to punish the Alliance, but rather to forge a new relationship based on mutual respect and cooperation. In the end, the Galactic Alliance was forced to acknowledge the strength and resilience of the human race, their arrogant beliefs forever shattered. The humans had not only survived the onslaught of the most powerful civilization in the galaxy, they had emerged as a respected and feared power in their own right. As the dust settled, and the two sides began the long process of rebuilding, Graktur could not help but reflect on the lessons they had learned. The humans, once dismissed as weak and inferior, had proven themselves to be true masters of war, not through brute force and overwhelming technology, but through a spirit and determination that transcended the mere physical realm. And in that realization, the commander knew that the Galactic Alliance would never be the same. The humans had changed the very course of galactic history, and their presence would forever be a reminder that the universe was a far more unpredictable and dangerous place than anyone had ever imagined.